G'day ladies and gentlemen, Duckville here. Welcome to a StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm replay cast. I've got a PvP today, and it is going to be a bit of a team battle. We've got two wonderful North American SC2 players here from Team Gravity, who we've seen every now and then. I'm sure there are quite a few Gravity games or Gravity team member games across the channel. But here today we're going to have our first actual team battle. So up at the top left-hand side of Heavy Rain, it is none other than Trace. So we've seen Trace before. He's, I think, a couple of times actually in other games that I've casted where Trace is just generally a very solid Protoss player. So we get to see how he goes here in PvP, which sometimes can be quite volatile, especially on this matchup. And especially against someone who he may have had, quite a few practice games with. Down on the bottom right-hand side is our blue Protoss, also from Team Gravity. It is Serendipity, aka Serenity. So we've got our two Protoss players, and just in terms of the map, of course, everyone knows that Heavy Rain is a bit of a blink map. You can pretty much see why just from that simple little zoom that I've done there. You've got like so many avenues of blinking you can come across that way. If you're unfortunate enough to get contained across here, then you can even have the blink come in the back as well, but that's much rarer. But it is a pretty common sight to see blink on this map, so would not be surprised if we see probably three Stalker rushes from both of these players. It does seem like a very common build on this one. It gives you a nice little bit of map presence at the start of the game with the three Stalkers, and it also gives you the ability to move into a Stalker-based play, of course being Blink Stalkers, very quickly. So I would not be surprised to see that kind of stuff from both, or if not one of these players. DTs and other kind of fancy tech can be used, however a lot of the time, I'm not sure why particular this map, given that the main bases in this map are actually, they've got a few like sort of side spots that you can hide stuff in, but commonly when people do DT and Stargate based plays on this map, it's very common to see them hidden. You can see like Stargates over here, of course Stargates over here are also really good, and then of course your Twilight Council and your Dark Shrine can be basically anywhere, but it is pretty much, yeah, and in fact there's the second gate for Serenity, so he's going to be doing a 3 Stalker rush here, a very common Protoss versus Protoss build that came out as a way to, it was a long time ago actually, it was way back in Wings of Liberty, I think in like the Tal'Darim Altar days, I'm pretty sure that it was around about that time that it started to emerge as a really good build to deflect 4 gates, because of course back in Wings of Liberty, this particular matchup was just a frenzy of 4 gates, so it was very common, and people had to find a way to deal with it, and the way that you generally deal with it is to get 3 Stalkers out quickly. Now how does this help you? You may be asking, if you're not a Protoss player, you may be unsure of why the quick 3 Stalkers helps you. They're very quick, and they get out on the map, and they're able to elicit some pressure on your opponent if they're going, and you can try and scout them out. Or possibly one key thing is that you can try and pick up this, the probe that is out on the map. So if you can do that, then you can effectively stop your opponent from 4-gating, because you can't 4-gate without a pylon across the map. So that is why we do tend to see this map quite a bit, this build quite a bit. Now Serenity has moved across here and is going to be looking to get some damage done, but unfortunately he encounters 2 Stalkers, and will get, wow, a Time Warp as well from Trace, just to make sure that he does get the kill there. So Serenity forced to back off for now. As we can see, he's just going to bring back the second and the third Stalker that he made. He's going to bring them all the way back home. Blink Tech has started out for both of our players. We can see that Serenity has gone up to 4 gates very quickly here, along with the Blink Tech. However, his opponent started out the Twilight Council already, and is, it's almost done. It's getting very close to being done. There's a few Chronos that are being dropped in that as well. We've got the 3 gates, and then of course the Robo is also on the way here from Trace. And we can see that both players have basically retreated into their bases. We actually, for Serenity, he's sitting just outside on the edge here, but both players are really just staying inside their bases, because they know, alright, you know, we can see that there's no shenanigans in here. So Serenity's seen inside and has said, all right, you know, basic sort of setup going here. And for Trace, he's seen the same sort of setup, but does see the second gate as well. So both players are just making sure all of the respective builds that could be coming across are dealt with. Of course, we've got our Blink Stalkers that are ready to counter Blink Stalkers and other types of gateway pressure. We've also got these Stalkers just sitting here in case there could be a proxy Stargate or something like that, so that both players can deflect any Oracles or perhaps even Phoenix that may be utilized. So Trace is going to deal with that scouting probe there, but he will have to deal with a couple of pylons that are being placed. I really like this position over here. That's a really good one. You can see how that's a really good spot, because it gives you like a little bit of it gives you a position to sort of move through here. You can see that there is you know, both pathways can be used, but also your opponent, normally they're going to be scouting that way, and they're not actually going to be walking past that particular path. So just as a random sort of building placement tidbit, I really do like that one. So so both these players just playing very, very carefully right now, just wanting to make sure, alright, is my opponent coming across? Is he going to be building something? Is he going to be attacking very quickly? It's like you normally do see big attacks come at around about the 9 or 10 minute mark in PvP. But so far, neither of these players has actually pushed across the map and is trying to be aggressive at all. Trace is going to see that his opponent has put down an expansion. He'll do the same as well. You don't ever want to get caught behind when you're in a PvP and people are expanding. You never want to get caught behind with that kind of thing, because it can always lead to trouble when your opponent has a much bigger production rate. So we can see here that Serendipity, aka Serenity, is just still sitting inside his base. Trace is going to look to perhaps move across, blinking around, wants to check inside his natural to make sure there's no proxy pylons or anything like that inside. But yeah, so far everything is very mirrored. We've got, you know, very similar worker counts, 26 to 29. Serendipity is Serenity. I don't know, like the real name is Serenity, but he's changed it here to Serendipity, which is very close to Serenity, and it's very confusing. But Serenity is just a tiny bit behind in the work account. Presumably a little bit more chrono has been dropped in here by Trace. Yeah, just sort of recognizing that both players are in a very similar situation when it comes to the play that they're using. He said, alright, well, what I'm going to try and do is boost up my economy a little bit faster. So that's what all of his chrono has been dumped in. Whereas for Serenity, he's actually got an Immortal just on the way, and we did see that he is now moving across the map with a couple of Blink Stalkers here. They've jumped inside the main. They're not going to reveal themselves just yet. Just in the corner here, I'm actually very surprised that Trace isn't keeping an eye on this. Normally you want to put a pylon here, but not on the edge, because you get sniped off. But the Blink Stalkers move through. Looks like they're going to try and target down some of the probes, taking out a couple. It's around about, it looks like it'll be 7. Yeah, 7 probes are being taken out. The Stalker blinks away, and it should be a-okay out there in the corner. The Mothership Core needs to be very careful, but we also had some aggression over on Serenity's side of the map, with Trace just blinking forwards, trying to get some work done on the natural nexus there, and also doing a similar kind of play with some Stalkers jumping in the main. But both players, no real damage has been done. We can see it is 7 to 2 in a worker kill tally, so Serenity has done a decent job with that. He's brought himself back into a good spot when it comes to workers, 37 to 34 at the moment. So it looks as if we will have Trace is just going to have to try and catch up somehow. We'll see how he does that. It looks as if he will have to deal with some more Blink Stalkers that are going to be coming through in the main base yet again. And of course, Trace is going to still be looking to get some damage done himself, but there is a nice little defense force here, an Immortal and a couple of Zealots. As long as they stay in position, I think that's a really nice little force. Of course, you will lose the Immortal to this many Blink Stalkers, but you should be able to take a couple of the Stalkers with it. But both players going on aggressive here. Mothership Core does go down, that Immortal does get sniped away, and now Trace is going to try and slowly blink out of there. Does a little bit of damage in return, and of course has to deal with his own little bit of damage that he has taken. And it looks as if, well, for the most part, this still continues to be a very, very similar game. I am still a little bit confused as to how Trace has not moved over here and just tried to at least put a pylon down to make sure he can spot what's going on and make sure that he can clear out this corner of his base. But it looks like we'll have a little bit of aggression here as Serenity looks to push forwards, takes down a few of the Stalkers. The Stalker count is just favouring him by a touch here. Blinking forwards, I think that could be a bad idea. He's starting to push towards his opponent's side of the map, but the Stalker count still continues to be very similar. In fact, it is exactly even right now, sitting on 7 for both of these players here in this little skirmish through the middle valley here. But we'll probably start to see both players look to transition out here, and yes, Trace is doing exactly that. He's heading up towards the Colossus tech. +1 to weapons on the way. We can also see that extended thermal lance is coming through. Gonna throw down a cannon or two to make sure that his mineral lines are protected. You'd expect, yeah, there's another one just going down there. And no doubt the Colossus will start soon. We'll start to see the both players go down the Robotech path. A few more Stalkers attacking in here from Serenity, doing a wonderful job of harassing inside this main base here. Wow, I'm surprised those Stalkers were able to get away, but an Observer is going to scout them. He's going to see this, but he could come in range of his opponent's Observer. Oh no, he moved it back. Alright, interesting. So Trace comes across, clears out this side of the base, and finally we'll have some arrest from that constant little, not necessarily hugely damaging, but slowly chipping away at the probe count there. So he will finally get a little bit of a break from all of that, and now we can see that Serenity is now starting to take his third base. We'll see Trace also doing a very similar thing, and both players are also just really ramping up the tech right now. This is the kind of point where you start to you will see a lot of players just sort of take different paths when it comes to where they want to go in terms of PvP, because PvP can differentiate into a couple of different styles. You can have people go extremely heavy air, like throwing down 2, maybe even 3 Stargates, getting a very generally Tempest-centric army. You have a lot of Tempest, they do a lot of long-range damage, but you also need to throw in Void Rays and Templar to make it effective. But also you can see people just stick around on a little bit more of the old school composition of Colossus based, throw in a few Immortals, you'll have Zealots and Archons on the ground, and you know, those two options are pretty, they both can work. It kind of depends on what your opponent is doing, as always in StarCraft. You do have to be adaptable based on what your opponent is up to, but I think the air focus generally does tend to do a little bit better than the ground focus. Colossus get annihilated by Tempest, and then of course once the Colossus are gone, all of your units on the ground can do really well, but of course you still do have to watch out for the charge lots and the Zealots as well. They can be quite frustrating to deal with, but as we can see here, Trace is just going to be poking through the middle of the map. A couple of Blink Stalkers here going to jump up, maybe deal with this Zealot that's here. Will the Zealot see them? No, it won't, interestingly enough, but now Trace has found a little bit of a sweet spot here, just dealing with a Warp Prism that was looking to come through the middle of the map, but that's not going to happen. It looks as if Serenity has spotted the Stalkers that are coming through. They're now going to get inside the main base. Proton Overcharge active. One cannon is here as well, and a single Zealot will jump in, try and save the day. Looks like he will be able to save the day for the most part, but a few workers will get taken down by Trace. Nicely done by him. Just to snipe off a few workers, throws away a couple of Stalkers as well, and you may be thinking, wow, why is he just throwing away these Stalkers? At this point, this is where a lot of the tier 1 gateway units start to become very superfluous in this matchup. The reason for this is, of course, that, you know, Zealots will get eaten up by Colossi and Archons. You'll see that, of course, Sentries do very, very little at this point. Of course, having a Guardian Shield is nice, because, of course, it reduces damage by 2, but in the long run, it's not a huge amount. When you've got Stalkers that are, you know, doing 16 damage, you've got Immortals that are doing 60 damage versus armor targets, a Colossus, or etc, etc. It's a lot of, like, the 2 armor is, sorry, the 2, actually I suppose it is armor. The 2 armor that you get from the Sentry Guardian Shield is just not really worth it at this point, so it is a good idea to start to throw away some of these, some of the lower tier units. Of course, the Zealots are an exception to the rule, because they do a wonderful job of tanking. They can also jump on top of Stalkers when they charge through, and can take them out, as you will probably see as we start to get into the late game of this particular match. We've got Serenity now Is this seriously, this probe is going to get inside? I'm actually quite amazed that this has gotten this far. What you want to do here, just for anyone who may be wondering, is you try and put down a pylon next to your opponent's pylons and see if you can actually get it up in time. But Trace has spotted this. He's going to clean up the probe there, and also cleans up a couple of, well, one of the pylons that was being put down there. Where is that warp prism? Here it is. The warp prism has come by the main base, is just getting ready to jump in, but there are a couple of cannons here, so he should be okay against a relatively standard force of zealots, which will probably be, you know, 4, anywhere up to 8 zealots. Is going to have a hard time against the 3 cannons, and not to mention when Trace is lightning fast on the ball. Throws down a few zealots to help defend there, but he is also pushing across, looking to take out the force base of Serenity. Serenity, but also we've got a small attack coming into the natural base here. DTs and Zealots have been dropped in. The Colossus is not going to have a good time against those DTs. Forced to back off for now. Needs to find some detection. Where is the Observer here? I don't think we actually have one in this mix. The DTs could have stayed in there and done some more damage, but looks as if they will back off for now. There is an Observer somewhere out on the map. There it is. Find the Observer, and it is actually just trailing the rest of the force. One thing you want to do, guys, as well, when you're playing PvP, is you never want to add the Observer into your group of units. Like, say this is on, you know, hotkey number 2, right? You never want to also have an Observer in that group. You want the Observer to be following the Colossus or something like that, so that it doesn't get sniped off by anything. Because if you have the Observer inside a group, let's say that let's say that we're Serenity right now, and we've got that Observer, and we right-click just over here, right? The Observer is going to run all the way over there and then get sniped down by those cannons. So you've always got to be really careful about just little small things like that. And speaking of small things, we've got a small skirmish over on the right-hand side of the map. We can see that Serenity is looking to get some, just a small flanking attack there with a few Zealots to distract his opponent while he pushes into the fourth base. Cannons are going to be here to defend, but only for a short while. The Colossi smash them down very quickly. Serenity is going to retreat right now, knows that his opponent's main force is on the way here. And let's also bear in mind that both these players have had a little bit of trouble making sure that their force is secured, but at least for Trace, he's actually had his up and mining for a moment. So he's actually sitting in a little bit of a better spot, especially when it comes to economy. We can see that he's starting to really bank up right now. Supply count is sitting at 197 for Trace, while his opponent is currently sitting at 177. Starting to build up some of the big air units here. The Tempests are now going to be coming into effect. I would like to see some air upgrades started for both of these players. It's quite incredible the bonus damage that the Tempests get from the Cybercore upgrades, so I think it is a really good idea to start that as soon as you start the Tempest tech, which normally comes at about 3 to 4 bases. You want to be starting up your air upgrades as well. I think they're really, really helpful. And one thing which I did mention before is also having Templar available for Storms. So we will see Serenity actually switch these into some Archons, which are also a fantastic unit, but I really think that Storm is actually really helpful when you get to mid and late game of PvP, because the Storms, Tempest and Void Rays, which is, as I mentioned, one of the more common compositions that you do tend to see when you start to get towards late game. Tempest and Void Rays love to stack up on top of each other. They give each other hugs all day, and what you can do, despite the high health and the high shields of the Tempest and Void Rays, is that you can throw down a few Storms. That's free damage, as long as you can keep those Templar alive, which doesn't really take too much micro. You should be able to get some wonderful free damage on a big cluster of units. And I mean, even Colossi, if you can get the Templar in range, a little bit of damage on top of Colossi is never hurt anyone as well. So, well, I suppose it's a Colossi, but anyway. Trace is now just sitting in a very defensive position right now. He has established, is looking to establish a 5th base up towards the top right-hand side here. Throwing down a few pylons just to alert him to when his opponent is on the way. The Tempests are now moving across to the side. Not sure where these guys are going. Looks as if they will snipe off an Observer on the way there. But the 5th base here from Serenity is, from Trace is probably not going to go up. This is a tough position about this map, and we'll probably have a big fight here, I would assume, given that both players are looking to move into position. No Oracles for vision. A couple of hallucinated Colossi will go up, and now pushing forwards, taking some of the damage. There are those hallucinations, and a firefight to end all firefights as Serenity pushes through. He starts to target down the Tempest, does a wonderful job of that with his own Tempest, and removes them from the battlefield. But the Colossi, I don't know about that targeting there from Serenity. He targeted down the Tempest of his opponent, but then neglected the fact that there are still a lot of Colossi on the ground here from Trace, but he has walked in some DTs and is going to try and take them out. Looks like the DTs are actually doing some great damage here, taking out quite a lot of the forces here, but also the Tempest, two of the Tempests are still alive, but they will fall down in a moment here as Trace does eventually win that fight. For the most part, he's won that. I mean, he has come out ahead in supply, 132 to 83, so he's done a pretty good job. Now, the big thing here is, what do you resupply on? This is the part where it can get really interesting in PvP. So it looks as if Trace is going to add in a couple of Void Rays. Is he going to continue production? It looks like he's just letting it go for the moment. Building up a few Zealots, he's going to send them across to try and deal with his opponent's attempted 5th base. Meanwhile, for Serenity, he's also just making sure that his opponent's 5th is cleared up. But Trace is going to take a little bit of a dare here. A little bit of a risk. He's jumped into the middle of the map here and he's going to throw down a base that is right next to the Corridor of Death. And now Trace is, oh no, don't do that, Trace. He's going to lure the DTs back towards that base. It looks as if, well, the DTs are going to find it. They should be able to take it out. I wouldn't even be targeting down those Zealots. I'd be going for the Nexus, just clearing out this space. You cannot let this one go up, because this is a, weirdly, despite this base being, you know, there's many more angles that can be attacked here, especially when you consider Colossi. This space is actually a little bit more defensible because you can, because of the positioning of the bases. If you look on the minimap for just a second, you can see that when it comes to Trace defending, all he has to do is proceed down this side, just back and forth up this side here. Whereas if you take a base across to the, if you take across this space, you have to go back and forth that way, which, while it's you know, protecting your quadrant of the map, it's a little bit harder to defend. So I'll be interested to see how Trace deals with this position here, because as I said, it does feel a little bit more favorable, just partially to terrain as well. This dead space here really hurts defending this base across to the left hand side, so we'll keep that in mind. But Trace is going to drop a DT in, trying to deal with some of the cannons that are being built up here, but 4 are just on the way, and oh, sorry, a 4th is just coming through right now. But Trace has gotten his 5th base up, so he'll be sitting comfortably on a pretty decent economy, sitting at 71 probes right now. His main base is all done. The natural base is just about done as well. Just a little bit of gas just coming in here. And it looks as if Trace is just going to beef up the army before he wants to push any further. He's now up to 199 supply. We can see over on Serenity's side of the map, he's got his 5th. It's cannoned up reasonably well. I would like to see maybe a couple more cannons just to make sure that it is properly defended, but he's also got quite a few Tempests now starting to pop out. And looking at the unit counter as we start to move into late game, when production starts to trickle away a little bit, we can start to see that the Tempest count relatively even, but we do have, I believe it was 2 at a time were coming out for Serenity there for a moment, but we can see a few Zealots will jump into the natural base, taking out a cannon. Yeah, a few GTs to defend, nicely done. Be able to take care of those Zealots quite swiftly there. Their little Reaper Scythe blades, double Reaper Scythe. Is there any? It's always funny when people talk about Dark Templar and the weapon they have, because you see, one of them has, you know, like one-sided blade, and it's like that guy got the short end of the stick. But Trace is now going to look to push towards the 5th base of Serenity here, just poking in a little bit, doing a little bit of damage here, just off to the side, but not getting a huge amount done. Zealots once again will attack into the 4th base of Serenity. But this is what I'm talking about here with this positioning here. As well as defending this base, Trace is also looking to push down this way. He can also attack here, and then if his opponent starts to move towards his own 5th base, he can just move quickly straight back up. And he's got the high ground, he's got these cannons for defense here as well. A Tempest will do a lot of damage from range before any of these Colossi can get into a good position to fire. And it is a pretty good situation for our red Protoss from Ravage. So I think that as long as I just want to see an Oracle from one of these players. When you get to this stage, you really need to have an Oracle. It's not enough to have an Observer out, and an Observer has a very high chance of being spotted. So what you want to do is you want to get an Oracle and then actually drop a Revelation on top of these units so that your Tempest can fire from range, because they are better at shooting than they are at seeing, which is a little bit weird, but we can see that Trace is still not actually considering this base, but his opponent is. Now looking to move up here is Serenity. He's going to move towards this top right-hand side here. He's going to drop the Nexus down. I think that's really cute, and I think that's a really good idea. At this point, taking this base is going to be a little bit more risky. Just weirdly, because of the positions of where Trace has taken his space. But now, as we can see, the composition starting to really ramp up here for Serenity over on his side. We've got the 8 Tempest out, we've got the 7 Archons, a lot of Zealots around the map, also doing some harassing here up at the top, and of course there are 6 Colossi that can do some really good damage on the ground, but we're still waiting to see an Oracle or something like that to provide some vision. But taking out that base, excellent stuff there from Serenity. He is going to be able to deal some economic damage there. We'll probably see the income cut down just a little bit. Trace is moving forwards, looking to come across, but gets caught in the Time Warp boobs there in the middle. Just a little bit of cleavage on those ones, but the Tempest are now going to start to just move around a little bit. I would like to see Trace get a little bit more aggressive, as he has lost this base, and he still does have a decent bank, but he also needs to make sure that these extra bases around the side are cleared out. So it is starting to head towards the late game here, 35 minutes in, or I suppose it is the late game now, as both these players have been poking and prodding across the length and breadth of this map, and of course across the whole time we've been in this game. We've seen some stalker battles at the start of the game into a very passive mid-game state between these two as they look to try and figure out a way to maneuver into each other's bases. We saw a lot of blink sniping of workers and of course attempting to pick off some buildings and things like that, but in the end both players have moved into this late game position where we have compositions consisting of Tempest, Colossi, Archons, and of course a few Zealots thrown in for good measure. So late game is certainly upon us here in this PvP on heavy range. Looks like, well, for the moment, Trace is just keeping an eye on his opponent, not necessarily dealing too much damage, but he is taking a lot of damage here. I'm quite surprised that he hasn't actually just sent a couple of units back. You barely need to send anything. A single Colossus with a little bit of micro should be able to hold this one back, but unfortunately he's had a little bit of a troublesome spot with that. We're going to move an Archon across here. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but a DT has snuck into the mineral line and it's going to be keeping an eye on things here for the moment. But Trace, I don't know. This feels like a little bit of a weird position for him, I think, just given that he hasn't really come back to defend this. As I said, I'm not too sure why we haven't actually seen anything come back. Well, observers are here. Observers will do a good job of seeing what's going on. There we go. Finally clears that one up. I think he was just a little bit distracted, just trying to make sure he knew where all of these Tempests were. And hello, we have a mothership core on the way. Oh, sorry, a mothership being switched into from the mothership core. There you go. English good, words good. I heard it's good to have words when you're commentating, but Trace is now going to move forwards. Needs to get something done at this base, but there's a lot of cannons here defending this one. It's going to be very hard for Zealots to get in. 303 on their upgrades. No shield upgrades for Trace at the moment. Did start to invest in his air upgrades. We can see +1 on the kinetic overload and the resonance coil for these Tempests, but I don't know, I kind of feel like both players have just sort of been a little bit lax on their upgrades. We can see that Trey's still continuing to grab his +2 on his air weapons, but +3 to shields is already coming through here. +2 to air armor is also on the way for Serenity. It just kind of feels like he's gotten the better end of the upgrade stick here, as we have 0, 2, 3 on the ground. So there's a little bit of a difference when it comes to the progression and the particular path that these players have taken with the upgrades, but I would just love to see continuous chrono being thrown down on the Forge and the Cyber Core from both players to make sure that they're getting their shields up and also getting their air upgrades done as well. But, oh wow, this Archon with the Pimp Fizz just dropping down a little bit of pain on the cliff there. He's taking down a few probes every now and then. But both of these players have just sort of moved into a very passive state right now. And I just want to also point out that there is still, there's no Templar, so we won't have any Storm, but we are going to have a lot of firepower here, lots of Archons to go. Come across here for Trace, it looks as if he wants to get in here and get some damage done. We can see that Serenity was just a little bit out of position here. We'll see how much damage he can get done as he comes across. This positioning is very interesting, but here we go, the battle does take place, a Time Warp being thrown down. Serenity's units being caught there a little bit slow, but of course with all those Colossi there, he's able to cut down some of the Archons from afar. And the Mothership provides that invisibility, which is incredibly important here. As we can see, there are a few observers up at the back here. This is where you need to be a little bit more careful with your observers, because if they go down, then you can be in a lot of trouble. If the observers move across, they will spot out some of the units here, and Serenity has to move back just a little bit. He's in a little bit of an awkward spot, but all those Tempests there, we've still got 7-7 Tempests, so both players are sitting in a good position with all of that, but the harassment continues on from Serenity. I love the amount of harassment that Serenity has been doing across the game here. He's been consistent in his opponent's base, took out this base, took out the top base as well, and has now again taken out another one here in the middle of the map. So Trace is going to start to move into a possibly difficult position where his economy at the moment has been torn apart. He's got basically no income apart from this one base here, so he needs to be very careful, but he's still dancing around this position. He's trying to figure out how to approach this, how to get in here and deal some damage. Well, we can see now that Serenity has actually moved across the map. We haven't actually, Trace has not actually seen that just yet, but Void Rays are now coming through, looking to get some damage done on the Nexus. Should be able to take that down. Meanwhile, it looks as if we will activate a little bit of a base trade here, as Serenity does lose his bottom left-hand side base. That was one of his only mining bases. We still have a little bit across to the side, but also this one in the middle is just about to go up, and now we can see that Trace will push through the middle of the map, going to take out his opponent's third, but his own third, and well, I suppose it's not even a third at this point, is about to go down. We've got Serendipity, aka Serenity, Team Gravity now moving through. He's going to try and take out his opponent's production. Meanwhile, for Trace, what's his decision going to be? It looks as if he is going to come through the middle of the map, take out all of his opponent's economy, which I think is a good decision. We'll have to see how it pans out, though. Taking out, when it comes to PvP, taking out your opponent's economy in a base trade, it does normally do quite well. However, this mothership is going to be a bit of a wild card factor here, as Serenity is going to be able to cloak his units. He's also going to be able to recall. Don't forget about the recall. He can recall back home once he has a little bit more energy. Actually, now that I look at it, he's just used the Time Warp or something like that. I'm not actually sure what all that was about, but he will be able to recall eventually to try and defend his bases, and given that Trace will not have any more production left over, it will be a very difficult spot for him, but we'll see. His supply is now down to 139. Just looking at the unit count, we have 15 Tempest out for our Blue Protoss here. Serenity is looking pretty good at this point. He's now starting to annihilate all of his opponent's production facilities inside the main base. We can also see tech starting to fall down. The mothership, sitting at 50 energy, is almost at a point where she is able to recall, but the Tempest, wow, conga line of Tempest across to the side here aren't going to be able to take out a few of the units. We'd love to see them try and target down the Colossi or the Tempest, but Serenity, unfortunately, just a little bit busy with some of his micro. There it goes. Target's down one. Is he going to be able to get that one? Tempest, one more shot. No, does not finish off that Tempest of Trace. So Trace is going to continue to push forwards here. It looks like he will be able to grab this base, but there is an assimilator and another one back here. There is how many workers around? Serenity has one probe out. It's just across to the, just in the natural base there. Oh wow, Trace has actually established a base down to the bottom left-hand side as well. This is going to get very, very interesting as we start to see Serenity falling into a little bit of a troublesome spot. He's lost his economy. His production is going to be next on the menu, and Trace, I'm sure, is going to be looking to try and take out those Stargates and at least the pylons as well, because now both players are actually supply blocked, and now as the pylons continue to fall, it looks as if, yeah, Serenity is going to get ready for a recall. Here he goes, bunching up. Peace out, I'm back at home. Let's do this, he says, as he recalls back to home. He's now going to try and take out the rest of these units. Trace, a little bit caught out there on the ramp, is going to be taken out by a lot of fire from those Tempests as they move through. The Archons and the Colossi, these guys need to spread out from both of these players, but we can see Trace is starting to move back towards the corner here. Needs to be very, very careful. This mothership core, the mothership, as we said, is going to be very key. Actually, there is an observer that is going to provide a lot of friendly vision there, but now as the Tempests move forward, if Serenity can just target down the rest of those Tempests, the game is over. The Colossus will not be able to do anything, and there he goes, targets them down. 1, 2, 3, and the fourth and the fifth are now going to be going down as he looks to move forward. GG, well played from Trace. Wonderful PvP from both of these players. We got to see various aspects of how this matchup plays out. Moving forwards from the early game, where you have very similar builds, but very defensive builds at the same time. Moving into mid-game, where things start to get a little bit more based on tactics and a little bit of guerrilla warfare, bouncing in and out, trying to hack away at your opponent's economy. And then moving into late game, where we get to see the big compositions of Tempest and the Colossi and the Archons and things like that. Hope you all enjoyed this match. I'll see you all next time. Here, as you can see, 47 damage to bio units and then the 34 damage against other standard targets. His storms have also been wonderful, just spreading them out across the battlefield, doing really nicely there. And for minigun, he's been sticking with a much more